Good for you.
Yeah. So I am my own book publicist. So that has been,
Aren't we all?
yeah, we are all literally our own book publicists.
Yes.
Um, but I mean, that's what I do for my day job. Like my day job is
Right.
I'm literally I run a public relations business on top of being an author. And so I'm my first ever book publicity client. Yeah. So that
Oh,
it's
so
been a great,
you have a boutique business, like, you have your own business. It's not y
yes, it is.
Oh,
Yeah, it
that's
is my own boutique
awesome,
public
Sarah.
relations business. It is called
So
SLH
cool.
Communications, and SLH stands for Sound
Okay.
Like a Human. I came up with that name before generative AI, by the way.
I love that. Wow, okay. Got your crystal
Yeah.
ball out, got your crystals out too. Oh, I
Got my
love it. You
crystals and
just
my
foresaw
crystal
the
balls out.
future.
Yeah.
Yes. Just
Yeah. So, but
publish it.
yeah, so basically I just applied everything I would normally do for my clients. I'm like, okay, what can I do for myself? And so, like,
Yeah.
yeah, it's been really interesting too because it's allowed me. So, everything that I have learned from putting on events for, other clients outside of, the book world, I've
Yeah.
applied that to, okay, what's going to be a good creative book event for me? So, yes, my
Totally.
launch party was at the Improv Theater where I host a
Love
monthly pun
that.
contest and where I already know the venue and I know the people. So
Uh-huh.
I didn't do it
Yeah.
at a bookstore.
Built it.
Yeah. Yeah. So
Yeah.
so I did that. I have done some
Yeah.
traditional bookstore stuff, but I've also I did this awesome partnership with an improv show that I know of that happens at a brewery every month. And I
Ah,
did a thing where I read snippets of my book out loud and then told stories of what inspired me to write that portion of the book. And then they did a bunch of improv scenes off of that. And then I was able to sign
oh,
more
gosh,
books
that's
after that.
fun.
Yeah.
So
So
what
I
I'm hearing, Sarah I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you
no, no,
off.
no, it's okay.
Yes. No, what I'm hearing is that, like, you had a built-in audience, right, at these improv venues. You host this really cool pun contest, and you, with your publicist savvy, you were like, "You know what? Like, why kinda do this roll a die, and be like, 'Come to this bookstore, I'm gonna
Yeah.
have books for sale. It's gonna be the improv theater that you all come to anyway for my pun contest. Buy my
Yeah.
book.'" Yeah, I
Yeah.
love that. That's
Thank
so
you.
smart.
Yeah. Cause I was just like, you know, I kind of, I've realized that it's like, unless you have, because I'm a debut author, right? Unless you have this
S
built-in platform as a multi-book, best-selling author, just,
Yes.
just come to my book launch at a bookstore is going to get old after a while. You're going to kind of need, if
Right.
you want to reach new audiences in person, I've found that creative live events have been a really, really fun way of doing this, and, but yeah, so I'm done with events
Brilliant.
for now, but I have been able to book in August, I'm gonna be at the KPBS Book Festival in San Diego, and then I'm going to do an event on Long Island, where my
Cool.
husband's from. He hopefully, my mother-in-law is gonna bring the entire neighborhood out,
Mm.
and, yeah, and then after
So
that,
my family too there.
yeah. Long Island, yeah, it'll be
The
fun.
Long
Uh,
Island, yeah.
Long Island, yeah, and then after that, I'm working on actually, so before we lived in San Diego, I lived in Washington, DC, and I am
Mm.
working on for a DC stop at some point this fall, and my old improv home over there, Washington Improv Theater, I'm working with them on doing a similar thing to what I've done in San Diego of, like, I come out, I read snippets from my book, and it inspires a whole, set, and then
I love
somebody, either
this.
bookseller partner or I are selling books in the lobby.
So, I did not anticipate getting into this, listen, Sarah, but it sounds like you have a background in improv.
Yes, I
Oh,
do.
amazing, amazing.
Thank
Okay, well,
you.
that makes 2 of us.
Oh my wait,
It
wait,
was a
whoa, whoa, whoa.
very
How did I not know this about you before?
because I did it in college, only in college, and just it was for a brief time, and I ended up
Mhm.
kind of favoring stand-up just because the improv group, it was a little fratty. This is what happens at liberal arts colleges where you don't have a Greek system to absorb that energy, and so
Yeah.
we ended up having it was, like, intense, but it was really fun, and so I'm a big short form gal. I'm a short
No
form gal
way.
because yeah, I it's like 'cause if someone buzzes into your scene and they completely neutralize it, like, I'm doing
Yeah.
this really funny scene with my friend, and this guy buzzes in, and he turns to me, and he's like, "Janet, you need your bedpan. You've just pissed the whole," and I'm like, "Oh, Tom, get off the stage, Tom." So, but then see, the thing is, Sarah, I can then do that to Tom,
Yep,
as you, I'm
exactly.
sure, have too. Like, it's like the time comes
Mhm.
around, and he's building his scene, and you jump in, and you're like, "I'm the Babadook." and he
Yeah,
has to yes and you.
exactly. Exactly. Take that,
Yeah.
Tom.
Take that, Tom.
Yeah.
Tell me about
So,
my
yeah,
my
actually, well,
fan. Yeah.
because so, first of all, I always joke that I am in the most benign cult possible, improv. That is, something because the
Yes.
topic of our conversation right now today, a couple of
Yes,
events
and
yep,
are. Yeah.
yep, I do both long form and short form improv, and actually, I
Oh,
did get the chance before my book launched to do a little promotion in a short form improv show as well, where they did the game where, 2 of the players on stage could only respond with lines of dialogue from my book, and then somebody else on
wow.
stage had to justify what they were saying. The video's on social media, it was delightful.
That's so
Um
fun. Maybe throw someone in. I love that. Throw someone in. Someone comes in talking about Be Well, can only say
Mhm.
lines from Be Well. Someone else comes in and can only speak in lines from Jane Eyre or Wuthering Heights or Pamela. Yeah, get some of the 19th to 18th century writers. Sarah, this
Uh,
is fantastic. I love these like unconventional and frankly really pretty well attended, right? Smart publicist ideas for events.
Thank you.
For those of you just tuning in, this is Sarah Flocken. We are talking about her debut novel, Be Well. Be
Mhm.
Well is the story of Annalise Ward, Anne Ward, a really, 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 really peak millennial individual who is finding herself in the summer of 2009, completely adrift, no job, no money, right? Wants to stay in LA, has a mega church like pastor father who has his brand of like high control
Mhm.
Christianity. That was thing number 1, Sarah, that I was like, "Gotta read this. I need to read this." I'm a Jew. Well, we'll get into that later. But like, and then the thing number 2 that made me like, "Oh my god, I need to read this book," in addition to all the millennial stuff, was we follow Anne Ward in her kind of desperation for navigating her difficult, broken family life, right? Her parents are divorced. Her dad's
Mm.
really has kind of cold and difficult to approach. And her lack of money in post subprime mortgage bubble, right?
Yeah.
We follow her into a new age cult. And you and I are going
Mhm.
to get into that in some detail. But Sarah, I just thought this was such a funny book. It was, oh my God, it was so true to life. It was so true to life. The voice in here was just, it was like conversational, it was delightful. It was really fun. Like just talking to you for 5 minutes. I'm like, oh, Sarah Flocken wrote this book. Yes, of course. Um, those of
Amazing.
you,
Thank you.
yes, I mean, please accept all these compliments and with the high regard they're intended, because this was a great read. Many people here, I think as people are kind of trickling in, probably, if Sarah and I from the Substack world, you've seen the cover of this book before, but if you haven't bought it, I really, really hope that you do. Um, Sarah, a formal welcome. I know we've been chatting for a bit. Thank you for being here.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I am so glad to do this.
I'm so glad to do it too. I have a question for you about kind of like how Be Well opens, right? We
Mhm.
talked about it's funny. Obviously it's funny. You
Mhm.
do improv, like, the voice is great. And at the same time, you're balancing this kind of the urgency. I called it in this question like thriller intense urgency of
Mhm.
being a post 2008, 20 something with no money and no prospects, but
Mhm.
lots of internet time, which is a key component of this. And
Mhm.
I just before we get into this, I want to say for viewers, listeners, whomever you are, or however you're receiving this message. You've probably heard our generation, the millennial generation, get dragged a lot, sometimes deservedly, sometimes undeservedly, for the kind of like extended, I would say, trauma plot reaction to
Mhm.
the economic depression of
Mhm.
the late aughts. So the whole like adulting thing, right? And we could go off on into a whole spiral of this conversation and how some people have used this as a reason to maybe not move forward with their art. Let's just put it that way. I'm not talking about
Mhm.
individual people's lives. But
Mhm.
Sarah, your book is so distinct from that. Your book isn't about like, oh, boo hoo, boomers ruined the economy.
Mhm.
I can't even. Like this is a like, like this is a this is psychological realism. This is really about how day to day, that's what I love so much about it. You have kind of a shorter time period here in a lot of
Yeah.
ways. This compressed, this pressure of like, I'm super codependent because I'm like a 22-year-old girl. I don't
Mhm.
wanna tell my best friend who's, like, the main character, like, Blair, Horowitz, like, I don't wanna tell my clueless lead best friend
Mhm.
that I can't afford the rent. I'm just gonna keep lying to her, I'm just gonna keep lying to my parents and hope that something works out. It's the way you write this is just so, so realistic. So, please, now that I've given that lengthy introduction, can you talk a little bit more about how you captured that intensity while also
Oh,
maintaining
man.
the humor? Yeah.
Thank you. Well, the first thing I'm gonna say is that this book did not spring fully formed out of my head. I did not achieve that on the first try. I will come right out and say it. This book took 13 rounds of revisions to achieve what it
Oh
did.
my goodness. You had to
Oh,
really buzz
yes.
in and out of the scene
Oh,
there.
yeah. So, I
Long
mean,
form.
yeah, this book began, so a little background on me. I am the classic external validation, achievement-oriented eldest daughter, elder millennial.
Bless
So,
'em. Same.
yeah. Like, recognize, like.
Yes.
Um, so I had wanted to write a novel for the longest time, and I've written
Yes.
plays, poetry, short stories, essays, what have sketch comedy. I've written a lot of sketch comedy, but I didn't do anything with the novel form for a long time because I was convinced that it had to be perfect, fully formed out of my head at the very first.
Mm.
But then I finally took a class called How to Start a Novel from UC San Diego Extension, and that is literally what it says on the box is how to start a novel. And so I did
I
an exercise where I came up with a bunch of disparate things that interested me, and I thought, "Okay,
okay.
how can I tie this together in a premise?" I sketched out a main character, had a very, very, very sketchy plot, and then I put it away because I was like, "Well, I'm getting married in April of 2020, and surely nothing in the
Mm.
world is going to happen to derail my wedding in April 2020." You Ron Howard voice. She did not
Oh
happen in
god.
April 2020. So, there I am inside, canceled wedding, full of rage at everything, and I, tell everyone I rage pantsed my way through that first draft. So maybe there's a bit of that energy left over, is that rage pantsing inside during
So
the
you were like,
pandemic.
as in you were wearing the rage pants or you were pantsed by rage?
Oh,
If you could unpack
you
that
could
for
say
me.
that too, but I'm talking about people that there's some people who are plotter and some people who are pantsers.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, yeah. Okay, yeah.
yeah, I barely
I
had a
see.
plot outline. I pantsed and I rage
You just
pantsed.
pantsed.
Yeah.
I love it. I
So
love that.
so that first draft was nothing like what I have now. As I was working my way
Mm.
through and thinking like, okay, I basically decided, well, I am going to call my own bluff. I am going to see if I can make this book into something that makes sense to me, that makes sense to a reader. What can I thought about that. At first, I didn't know what era I was even gonna set this in, and then I realized I
Mm.
don't know how 22-year-olds talk to each other right now. So I was like, "When was I 22?"
Ooh,
Uh,
yeah.
I'm gonna make so I know exactly how 22-year-olds in 2008, 2009, 2010 talk to each other. So
Yes.
that made my decision to set it there. And then I think
Okay.
that's when the improv brain kicked in. The ability to go scene by scene, like, and make everything very immediate. If you do long form improv, especially long enough, I think, you start to develop this sort of, somebody once described it to me as "if this then what" thinking. Like, okay,
Mhm.
if this is true in the immediate scene, in the immediate universe, what else is true? This is what's kept
Mm.
me from, making certain characters complete cartoons, like,
Yeah.
instead of making Anne just like the sum total of her trauma, I'm like, okay,
Right, right. Yeah.
yeah. So I'm like, okay, how would someone who was raised like this and encountered this, how would she react to this situation? You know, the fact that or even the fact that, yeah, she's got this like cartoon villain televangelist dad, but her mother had to love him at some point. What about him made her love
Yes.
him, Like, what made just thinking out little like, Lindsay, her roommate, kinda treats her like shit. Why does she remain best friends with her? What is good about this relationship with Lindsay? So, it's teasing out little things like that that helped me kind of capture things in the day-to-day immediate terms. And then just when I was thinking about I did have to think back to kind of how I felt and kind of the immediacy of everything when I first graduated. I actually deferred reality for a little bit and went straight into a master's program after I graduated, but
Mm,
not before I had done a
same.
series of very interesting minimum wage jobs, including canvassing on the street for political causes. Builds character.
Yeah.
I will say that much. But and actually I am it's interesting saying saying this to you because you left academia.
Uh-huh.
My academic career, I wanted it so badly. I wanted to be a professor because I was like, where else can I read books and talk about them and write them and think have people think I'm smart? I'll be a professor.
Yeah.
So my academic career kind of blew up on the launch pad. It didn't even get off the ground. But
Mm,
yeah, but so after I've have this, master's degree in hand and I have this totally, blown up in my face academic career ambitions, a lot of the feelings that I had about approaching the job market, about approaching, planning out my life after that, and then considering everything else that I had going on, that kind of helped me inform Anne. I tell people that Anne
gotcha.
is like my worst impulses when I was 22. Anne is my id.
Yeah. Oh,
She's
yeah. Yeah, and the way you built just going back briefly to the, like, the if this then, right? The
Mhm,
scene building as a guide for, like, novel writing, I think that's ingenious, and I think that's, like I really relate to it sort of the method approach of that too, right? Because this is also the case when you're in a long form scene, it's not just like you're not just up there to be like, "Okay," and, like, the laughs,
mhm,
the
mhm,
bit, the joke, like, you're also just, like, you're so fully bought in. And you're in the mindset of like, okay, I'm Annalise Ward, right? And I
mhm,
am desperate to please the people in my life,
mhm,
like these following people, and they think and feel this. So how would that affect my thoughts and feelings?
mhm,
Right.
yeah,
And so yeah, it's not so you put your present id on the page or you put your 22-year-old id on the page.
a
Or a
little bit
little
of
bit of
both,
both.
honestly. She like, a lot of what ends up happening in the book, I basically thought about, okay, what is the logical conclusion of if I had followed that terrible impulse when I was 22?
Yeah. Yup. I think that's what a great place to write from, y'all. Hope you're taking note. Um, Sarah, I have a question that is on my mind all the time because I'm working on a book that has a lot of like we'll just put it this way, evangelicalism versus
Mhm.
Southern Baptist influences for one character, a specific
Yeah.
character. And I'm like pretty interested in researching that. And so I have I'm curious your thoughts on, economic uncertainty and high control group
Oof,
grooming. So,
oof,
again,
oof.
for folks just turning in, we're talking about Sarah Flocken's Be Well, great and hilarious debut novel. We're following, the character Anne or Annalise Ward, our protagonist, as she is seduced by a new age cult. And another thing I really, really loved about this, Sarah, is how you showed that kind of like the desperation, that sort of feeder funnel, right? The lead magnet of like, man, I've got nothing going on in my life to make it work in the ways that it needs to work for me, right? And the way you kind of put her, then this my Anne's sort of seduction by this cult in I would say contradistinction with her, like, really Christian upbringing. So
Mhm.
she has the televangelist father, all that. I thought was so smart, and
Thank
I'm
you.
wondering if you could talk a little bit more about the cultiness of it all.
Yeah, of course. I mean, of course, you nailed it. Sagebrush, the holistic wellness collective slash maybe cult, they and Lighted Path Assembly, her televangelist dad's church, two sides of the same coin. That is, it is a spectrum of cultish belief right there. She kind of runs from one high control group into the arms of another. And I, you know, when I've been on my at my book tour events, two of them have been with an author who is also from my publisher. She has a memoir. Her name is Blair Glazer. She has a memoir called This
Mm,
Incredible Longing, and it's her memoir about being in a high control group. It's her memoir.
wow, okay,
Yeah, and so we've paired up on some events in LA where she talks
cool.
from her lived experience in being one of these high control groups and kind of the
Yeah.
nuances of what she still took from her experiences there, but also like
Mm,
where she was in her life when they found her. And the thing that we both agreed on is when you watch those cult documentaries on HBO and Netflix, the biggest gung ho believers are never the ones our age. They're always in their early 20s, or
Mm.
or they are at a real turning point in their life. They're just getting divorced. They just, lost
Mhm.
everything. Economic uncertainty breeds overall life path uncertainty, makes someone vulnerable, right for someone to say, "Hey, here is something that will make you feel okay. Here is something that
Mm.
will give you basically a path to follow
Yeah.
that will make you your higher, better self." So, and like people are more vulnerable to this kind of thing when they are at low points in their life. That's
Mm.
why, we talk about we talk about people being preyed on by cults and everything like that, when they're young and, they have nothing. A lot of churches do this too. If you talk about, the
Yes.
this whole culture of what's your testimony, people almost always talk about a rock bottom moment and then they found the Lord. And
Right.
I have a scene like that in the book where she talks about her dad's penchant for on-air baptisms and confessions, and it's almost always someone just recounting, like, humiliations and terrible things that have happened to them, and so any high control groups find you when you're at a low point in your life, and economic uncertainty creates and again, high control groups, cultish thinking, unquestioning belief in anything. We're seeing a lot of that right now. I mean, I fully believe
Mhm.
she is being run by a cult. MAGA's a cult.
Sorry, you cut out a bit. You fully believe that what?
That our country is being run by a cult right now.
The
MAGA
country
is
that sure, sure, sure.
100%.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Right.
Like, because if you ask I have had friends ask their parents, like, what would make you stop believing or trusting, what the president says, and they say nothing. I'm
Mm.
like, "Yep,
Mm,
unquestioning
mhm.
belief in charismatic leader.
Total
There you
total
go."
trust in Donald Trump. Yeah.
Yeah,
No,
but yeah.
yeah. I mean, yeah. I think that I wonder too, right? Let's get really personal here. This is personal for both of us. What are the traits of a like prototypical elder millennial achievement girl that would make her susceptible
Mhm.
to cult, like joining up with a cult? That's what I know.
External validation, like being
Yeah.
told how special you are and how "You got it, girl. You're so right.
Mm.
Like, you hang in there. You do you." Like,
Inject that between my toes, please. Yeah, thanks.
yeah.
But yeah,
I would
absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, and I would think anything that gives them, this idea that you are changing the world. You
Mhm.
are doing the right thing by being here. I think, just
Yeah.
the idea you are good. You are a good person if you do this. That's
Nexium, yeah, we're absolutely
catnip
yeah.
to me. Did you just say Nexium?
I said Nexium, and I'm
Oh,
actually
yeah.
thinking of executive success programs, which is sort of
Oh
the
my god.
feeder tunnel for Nexium, right?
Yep.
When he was getting more Keith Raniere, was getting more and more Nexium recruits, and the first election of Donald Trump was just such a heyday for him because
Mhm.
you can have cults in opposition to cults all the time, right? And so
Oh,
you
yeah.
have right, you have the kind of the MAGA feeder pipeline, and then of course, you have the Nexium feeder that's like, "We're gonna
Yeah.
defeat the MAGA people." It's such
Right?
it's the same tribalistic thinking left and right, and, you
Oh,
know,
yeah.
this is, again, what makes Be Well, and I'll hold it up one more time. I'll hold it up many more
Thank you.
times, what am I saying? This is what makes Be Well, I think, made it such a realistic read for me was because you have, um I had this essay a couple weeks ago, and now I think called My Codependent Internet, which is talking
Oh, I
about a
read
lot of the
that.
themes. Oh, thank you. I was talking about a lot of the themes in your that you're just exploring in your book too, right? Of like the what Gen Z would call chuggy, like I think younger
Mhm.
kids would call chuggy, the millennial belief in or the conviction that specialness can be our specialness that we were told that we were the unique possession of can be realized in these sort of institutional settings that
Mhm.
have been already, to the whatever Gen Z gnosis exists, where they know this, but we don't, have been co-opted
Mhm.
and utilized against anyone who would hope to enter them, right? And so
Right?
I I mean, I think there's some truth to that. I think there's also some naivete on whatever, but both parties, millennials and Gen Z. But I think that with the kind of high control group recruitment, if we're looking at the odds and we're looking at just what you said, so many people who are physically quite down on their luck. You have Anne Ward, who's already knows how to like recite her, it's not Catholicism, but whatever, her
Yeah.
catechisms, her church structure, right? The
Mhm.
rigidity of that. And you get her in a cult space that uses the same kind of like grooming tactics, but it's like feminine and
Yeah,
it's
it's
like
like
so
girl power.
empowering. It's girl
Yeah.
power. Yeah, and I'm can you talk a little bit more about how you built Sagebrush around that concept of girl power? This is the collective she joins, by
Yeah.
the way.
Well, it's from my own experience with a
Ah.
lot of groups like that. When I was a young professional, wearing too many tight pencil skirts and over plucking my eyebrows and doing all I really fully made my girl power, boss career thing my personality for a while,
Mm.
especially in my 20s, because I wanted so badly to prove that I was successful, that I was, that it was all worth it, that I was worthwhile. And and I wanted to break away from this idea of, being powerless, being, like left behind, if, which I felt like that was what I associated with being back home, right? And
Mhm.
so, but at the same time, I encountered all of these spaces where I remember I encountered this one like women's networking group where, they had a featured speaker every time, and it was talking about, how she overcame all the, institutionalized sexism and things like that. And which is, it was valuable in its own right, and it was, interesting networking, but also at the same time, I could not help but feel like I'm in youth group. I feel like I am this feel like, to be fair, like every organization, anything with a hierarchy, anything with that is group oriented has the potential of being kind of culty. This like this
Sure.
dynamic can exist anywhere. But
Coercion can appear totally, social court, yeah.
yeah. But, like, a lot of the wellness stuff actually, if there's a lot of books out, that talk about the cultishness of recent wellness trends, especially.
Mm.
I read a lot of Amanda Montell, cultish.
Mhm.
I read, The Gospel of Wellness by Rena Raphael while I was editing Be Well, and that
Mm.
really helped me kind of refine, like, "Oh my god, yes, this is what I was seeing when I was, coming up and disciplining my body because I wanted to prove I was a good person." I
Mm.
ran half marathons, I did so much yoga while I was, grinding away professionally, like, I was that girl boss, and so I
Yeah.
infused a bit of that into Sagebrush when I was building out that world. And then, I also would go into again, I have nothing against Eastern medicine or holistic wellness. You do what works for
Uh-huh.
you. I'm a big, like, love yoga, love acupuncture, love all that stuff.
Yes. Same.
It's just my issue comes when you make it your entire personality and make it
Mm.
about achieving and leveling up and, like, wellness maxing and all this stuff.
Right.
And when a lot of these, especially so many exercise programs in the early 2010s felt really culty. Like, you ever been to a Soul
Mm.
Cycle class? Like, come on.
I've heard so much tell of it. I have not
Oh,
been
yeah.
no, but I've heard it gets dark. I
It
um, you know, I'm wondering, right, like, where a thought that has popped up for me because I'm also working on a, this is, kinda technically my second cult novel now, because there's a
I can't
cult
wait to read
there's a cult in confidence, but, I think that it's an interesting point where coercion, right, and social
it.
pressure and like, "Hey, girl, we got you. We're love
Yeah.
bombing you right now. You're
Mhm.
desperate. Here comes the guilt and codependency." But that can start to tip over into behavioral authoritarianism, right? Like, there's like I'm quoting like Steve Hassan, like the kind
Mhm.
of like classic, "You're in the Moonies, like you're in a cult, honey. You're in Scientology." And so well, you're at Scientology Ground Zero actually right now in LA, and I'm wondering, Sarah, if did you, as you were doing that research and maybe just making these observations,
Mhm.
right, in that girl boss world, did you see the or do you yeah, did you see instances where that kind of coercive environment, that more like grooming focused environment tipped over into like, oh, sick, now I've got the power and I'm going to use it, you know, to kind of control my followers. Did you see that happen? Or
You know what? I have not, thankfully, not experienced that firsthand in any sort of wellness spaces, but
good.
I have plenty of friends who have been involved with, anything from, like, a skincare MLM, or,
Right, yeah,
yeah, that
yep,
those can get controlling real quick. Someone who has been part of a very intense, kind of workout community where people kind of sort of body shame each other after a while.
yes.
And then just like it crosses the line into really inappropriate behavior sometimes. Like, for example, when I was researching this book, I did go for a crystal healing session.
Mm,
Not something I would have normally spent money on otherwise. I love crystals as
yeah,
decorations and as
mhm,
jewelry. But like I'm not gonna rely on it to heal my headache or anything like that. But
mm,
I did go for a healing session, and the intake for this wellness center, like they are, they're asking me some really intimate questions, like
mm,
about my sexual history, my bowel movements, like
mhm.
everything. And then I realized the person who's been taking notes on this intake, it's been on a Google Doc that the healer sees in the other room. And I
Oh,
was like,
wow.
is this standard
Ooh,
practice? Like, what? I was like, y'all aren't bound by HIPAA, I guess, but,
right,
yeah, so, that was just something that made me feel like, "Ooh, yeah, like, how this is not good." Like, how do so I there did kind of become a point where I was just like, "Ooh, I don't wanna share anymore with you guys," because but then again, it's
right,
like, if you are in a place where it's like, "This is the only thing that will help me," and, like, maybe you're physically ill and, traditional medicine hasn't been able to help you, or you're desperate, or you just need something different, like, I can see how that could, an organization having that much information on you can be used
right.
coercively,
Oh,
honestly,
absolutely.
and used
That's yeah,
financially coercively too. It's like, "Well, we know that you have this going
yes.
on," and that's why in Sagebrush, there is a level of course, there's an MLM element. Of course, there's financial coercion. Of course, there's well,
Yes.
if you really want to invest in yourself and you really wanna get to
Mhm.
this higher level, you have to get to X and Y. And also, one thing that really, helped me when I was revising was I watched the Breath of Fire documentary on Kundalini yoga.
I've seen them all, Sarah. Yeah,
Okay,
yes.
I was like,
It's a that's a great one.
oh my god,
Yeah,
I watched so
yeah,
many of them, like, to the point where, like,
so many.
whole documentary shorthand in our house is so rampant, like, talking of
Same.
Nexium, like, we
Yep.
refer to the inner group in any organization now in our house as the DOS. Like, well, that's the DOS at my office, you know?
That's amazing. Oh my god. Oh, I love that.
Yeah,
I
like,
love
"Oh,
that.
yeah, I know people here, but I'm not, like, part of DOS or anything."
I'm not like the Allison Mack of my office.
Yeah,
I wouldn't Allison Mack people. Yeah,
yeah, I'm
no,
not Allison
that's
Macking anybody over here, like, yeah,
no, no.
like
Yeah. So good. It's it's like, I have so many thoughts on this, and I think that's I'm a little more I was a little more I'm a lot more woo than most in the
Mhm,
kind of the literary circles I move in. I'm and the way I kind of got to my, like woo place, right? And by
mhm,
woo, I mean, like, yeah, completely I'm really into, like, Eastern medicine,
yeah,
and I actually do have, I feel great about having stones around, and, like, they do have kind of a
awesome.
resonance for me in that
Yeah,
way, yeah. Um, and I got there though, I think by like other things breaking down for me, right? And one of those things was like chemical dependency on
mhm,
like pharmacological dependency, a kind of certain aspects, right? Of course, not all of Western medicine, that led me to, like so many people, seek some different things. But I think crucially, the if we're talking about chemical dependency, we gotta talk about the 12-step
oh,
program
yeah,
of it all, right? And that has definitely has potential for XYZ codependency coercion.
mhm,
That has not been in my experience. My
that's right, yeah,
experience was like, um, this is immensely helpful, and then I kinda moved on from it. But there's sort of the first step is of course admitting your
mhm,
powerlessness, and kind of like giving up the struggle to a power higher than yourself. There is immense healing in that, Sarah, when it is not distorted. And this is how I see a lot of these wellness cults,
mhm,
especially as distortions of actually like beneficial cultivations of a spiritualism or
mhm,
like, like peace and well-being, that could actually help a person, but is instead being kind of harnessed and directed
Mhm.
to for the benefit of a single individual, of it financial benefit,
Yep.
sexual benefit, just kind of that very service to self, right? As opposed to
Absolutely. Yeah.
service to others. Yeah. And so then, it's always I have some consternation around this because I'll be like, man, like I actually really do love meditation. Like I actually really do
Same.
love,
Yeah.
yeah, like insert this kind of more
Mhm.
spiritual alternative thing here. But oh God, here's this conspiritualism,
Yes,
like my friend
spiritualism.
won't try it with me because she's afraid of insert like
Mhm.
anti-Semitism could happen or this or, like,
Yeah.
and these are legitimate fears, but it's just you see a lot of people being blocked, I think, from exploring alternative modes of healing that might be
Mhm.
beneficial because it's easy to stereotype this as like or someone who's draining you. But in fact, what people don't know is cults are anywhere and everywhere. High control
Everywhere.
groups are everywhere.
Anything can be
Yeah.
a high control group.
Anything.
Yeah.
Anything.
Yeah, and that was
Anything.
one of my big fears when writing this was I wanted to make sure that I didn't portray the sagebrush folks and any of the people who practice there, like, as dumb, bad, or evil, This is just
No.
yeah.
Yeah.
Again, like I said, I'm a big old yoga girly.
Mhm.
Acupuncture has helped me so much in so many ways, like, I started meditating a lot 6 years ago, and I
Yes.
think that has
So
changed a lot
good.
of things for me. I was really bad. I'm
Yes.
still really bad at it. I still need a guided for, like, 3 minutes meditation. I love that kinda stuff. But I
Yeah.
also, don't yeah, I didn't want to say, like, "Oh, this is all bad," and make everybody like this evil cartoon villain. I wanted to make sure
Right.
that, yes, sagebrush and the megachurch are 2 sides of the same coin, but they're full of people who are not cartoon villains. They're full of people who
Yeah.
truly believe and wanna do good. And actually, on that note, I had a friend from high school. So for background, you asked about the evangelical stuff. I remember one time we were talking, and,
Yes. Yes.
I did grow up around a lot of that culture.
Mm,
If you've ever seen the movie Saved, with
I
yeah,
have.
Mandy Moore and all that, that was my high school, basically. Uh,
Wow.
yeah,
Wow,
and
wow, wow.
a friend of mine from that high school who is married to a pastor now, her dad's a pastor, she read the book. I was very nervous about her reaction to the book because I was like, "Oh boy, oh, is she gonna?" And then she loved it. She
Oh,
loved it
that's
because
good.
she told me, she's like, "Oh, the people like Anne's dad, we've been," to paraphrase, but this is basically what she said. She's like, "We've been dealing with that assholes like that my entire life."
Oh,
Yeah,
yes.
they're everywhere, and we are, this is like her pastor husband is reading the book and apparently loving it. Like their favorite TV show is The
That's
Right,
awesome.
like
I
yeah.
love that.
So, it's just like there are shades of nuance within all of these movements, but like I
Yeah.
also wanted to explore just the potential for how easy it is to believe so unquestioningly in something when you feel like your circumstances are desperate. And economic
Yes.
uncertainty in 2009 as now, people are ripe for a lot of high control thinking.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I think you know, this kind of ties into my question about the subtlety, uh, the way you portray, the millennial experience, right? And how this is not just a book about burnout and adulting and like it's more interesting than okay, the failures of girl bossdom, right? It's actually like a nuanced portrait of a lot of different people at a lot of different life stages as seen through the eyes of Anne Ward, right?
Yeah.
But it's not I think I see in certain in how do I put this delicate word? I've seen in certain books, I've seen certain debut books even. There's some us versus them, and this was maybe
Mhm.
more of a 2010s thing. We're kind of fading out of that post COVID, but there was some us versus them happening in the industry, I think, and there was some real fear, and people were baking it into their fiction. There was like a lot of trauma fiction and identity
Mhm.
fiction, and this is not that. And so, I think with shows like Pen 15, right, or Beef,
Yeah.
both of which I'm like super going to write about, for the same reason I'm interviewing you right now, you're seeing a more nuanced, kind of like tackling of the millennial experience. I'm wondering, Sarah, do you have any advice to like other, and really this is millennial writers
Mhm.
who are wanting to unpack some of this stuff, the failure, the burnout, right? But in terms that aren't like explicitly politicized or like hinging on victimhood, but are more like artistically honest. Like what would you tell those writers?
I think, what would you say if you didn't have an audience? Like, what would you write about this
Mm,
experience if you didn't have an audience? I think that is what helped me kind of get through the terrible first drafts with this.
sure.
Yeah, is just like stop thinking and writing for those first drafts like you have an audience. Like you will have
Mhm.
an audience eventually. Obviously, that's the idea. But,
Yeah.
what would you honestly say were your reflections on this time in your life? There were, we are it is very interesting as those of us who are elder millennials, we're getting to a time in our life where it's like, "Oh, our bodies are breaking down. We're getting older. Oh my god, nostalgia. Ha ha, remember the '90s?" But,
Yeah.
and so we're newly in the old person looking back on nostalgia thing. I think the thing too is to not idealize the past in any ways. Don't idealize this
Mm, I love that.
relapsarian, like,
Yes.
2090s.
Yes.
Like we were talking
Yes.
about earlier where it was like, you know, there is a trend I see among people our age and younger to kind of idealize, the early 2010s even of like, "Oh, it was a simpler
Yes.
internet," idealizing the 2000s and the '90s, and you were like, "Have
Oh
you
my gosh.
America's Next Top Model?" Like, the
It's
body
a
shaming,
wasteland.
it was a
Yes.
wasteland in so many ways, but there was so much good there too, of course, there's
Absolutely.
every era had so much good culturally as well as some really terrible crap. Like, you know,
Yes.
it is kind of a trauma response to wanna just burn it all down and move past and to paraphrase Pumbaa in our beloved '90s movie Lion King, "Put your behind in the past." Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what you do when you're trying to build your own life and your own self, but there comes a certain point where you're gonna have to look back honestly and think, "Oh, okay,
Yes.
how the
Thank
experience
you.
is," you know?
Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's kind of what I found myself doing with Anne Ward is, yeah, there were times where, I think I actually wrote about this in an essay for Literary Hub recently, whereas the belief,
Mm.
and cynicism cycles of the elder millennial woman in America. I think they changed the title, but,
Oh my god.
yeah, the
Please
craft.
repost that. I wanna
Yeah,
post that. Yeah.
you got it. I after this, I'm gonna
Get
repost
there.
this, but,
Please, yeah.
yeah, where it talks about, like, we've been built up, like, into thinking, like, "Oh, we can be whatever we wanna be," but then let down institutionally and built up and let down
Yep.
multiple times in our
Yes.
life, and that is worth acknowledging, but it's also, like, how do we react to that? What do we build out of that? Hey,
Yes.
I've seen some arguments that we are, like, the next greatest generation because 'cause we've, like, been through so much crap and we will, you know,
Mm.
be the ones to rebuild. We'll see. I don't know. Also, generation.
Stalwartly drinking my scotch about that. My
Yeah,
sidecar.
yeah. Sidecar. Ooh, I haven't had one of those in a while. I had a friend in college who, he had one of those, blue exam books full of recipes for cocktails, and,
Fun.
yeah, and he, like, hand wrote them in, and he would, like, in dorm rooms, make sidecars and stuff like that, like
Oh
old.
my god. That's adorable, and also, we are together. I'm feeling very old, in the best way, though.
Yeah.
For those of you just joining, I am, delighting in this conversation with Sarah Flocken, debut author of Be Well. Um, we are just talking about the sort of, like, build-up, breakdown, kind of elder millennial, institutional disaffection cycle. Sarah, and I love so much that you said you referenced a lapse. Like, we're really kind of in line here because that kind of, like, like post-lapsarian nostalgia thinking, right? You see how comical it can get.
Yeah.
It's like it's so easy for us to maybe sit here and be like, "Wow, wow, this TikTok video is actively draining my brain of its cognition. I can't think anymore. It's done for me."
Yeah.
And wouldn't it be great if no phone? Wouldn't it be great if no internet? Ooh. And then you see maybe younger people being like, "Oh, wow, all the 2010s were really easy when there was, like, feminist kitsch woke memes." And I'm like, "Wait, shit, this is bullshit. That's right. There was no lapse. There was no Eden." right? And I
Mhm.
think it's so easy. Like I'm literally, I have an essay in drafts on this very site that's like the fallacy of the lapse. I'm not even kidding,
Yeah.
because I'm obsessed with Christian. I am a Jewish person obsessed with Christian imagery all the time now. But
Hmm.
like, just because it tells me so much about the country I'm living in an interesting way.
Yeah.
Like, there's so much that's kind of like, this cultural discourse is really polarized and confusing, and I feel stressed. Oh, we're a Protestant country still, and let's look at it through a Christian lens. We're
Yep.
not really a secular
Yeah.
lens. Okay. So yes, just yes. I agree with that, Elizabeth. But it's so like helpful is what I'm gonna say. Helpful to think of it this way, right? So instead of doing this nostalgia thing where things were better, or instead of doing this view of the late aughts or 2010s where it's like, oh, that's right. I have no subjecthood beyond my victimhood. That's all
Mhm.
I've got. Big old victim me. And then you have just kind of flat art as a result. But what you're proposing is what makes the interesting and good art, right? Is what makes the more nuanced, engaging, funny, like dynamic writing. I see so many people on this website like idealizing 19th century writing because, well, I mean, it's great, right? We
Mhm.
love the British novel. We love the social novel.
Yeah.
We
Hell
love
yeah.
social realism. Hell yeah, right?
Yeah.
And then looking and being like, oh, I'm Ozymandias and look upon the wasteland of literary fiction. It's all garbage these days. MFA, MFA. And I'm like, dude, I get it. But in order to go back to that kind of nuanced social
Mhm.
realism that you love from Henry James, you're going to have to stop thinking of yourself as a victim of your time or as a victim of your birth, right? Or
Mhm.
as a victim of the tech oligarchs. It's so tedious. And I think that Be Well does this really, really smart thing where you have a character who is actually, being preyed upon, right?
Mhm.
Like Anne is being coerced in a lot of different ways. And Anne isn't this just like, oh, this I'll just come out and say it. And isn't this kind of like woke lamb who's like, oh, poor me. I was always marginalized. And now everyone is so mean to me. It's like, no, Anne's also doing shitty stuff.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
love your book for the same reason that I love Pen 15, right? Because it's yes, they're both funny, but you have this really like this textured portrait of what it is like to have shit happen to you and then do shit as a result. That is social realism.
Thank
That
you.
is psychological realism.
Thank you. Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
I have yeah. Oh, Mel says, "Let's talk about the end." Great.
I
We
was gonna say,
we
we'll
want
take
spoilers.
audience
We
questions.
want the
Yes, I
spoilers.
absolutely wanna get there. Yeah, we're gonna before well, you know what, Sarah? Let's just do audience questions first, and then you can wrap up with your, like, debut author
Yeah,
knowledge. How
sure.
about we do that? Yeah,
All
okay,
right.
cool. So, Belle Jennings wants us to talk about the end. Great lead. Sarah,
Mhm.
please, can you, without too many spoilers, because we still want
Okay.
people to really purchase and read it.
Purchase the book.
Um,
Yeah.
oh, purchase it. But can you tell us a bit more about how this wraps up?
Yeah. So,
Hopefully.
like I said, I took it to the logical extreme conclusion of what would someone do if they believe they found a modality that helps them achieve their highest self, but they're not achieving that highest self yet, and they feel backed into a corner. Where would they go? What would they
Mm,
do? Where would they go back to? What would they try and get their hands on? And that
mm,
is the reason that there is and I will tie this into the cover of the book. There's a reason that there's a splatter of something in the I don't know if you can tell too well, but there's a splatter of some kind of substance in the drywall on the letters. Is it
oh,
mold? Is it blood? I don't know. Yeah.
you'll have to buy it if I
Yeah. Yeah.
okay.
And then, after that big event, it's like, okay, what's logically going to happen here? Now let's talk about how would the people in the universe around her react? How is she going to
Right.
come back from that? And then really like thinking about where she ends, I wanted it to kind of come full circle and have it be her back in a situation that she really did not want to be in, but she's making it
Mm,
work. See, like I had some people read this and say,
yes.
"This isn't a happy ending. Oh God, now I'm depressed," but also kind of funny. And and the way I think of it,
Hashtag adulting. Reading is like adulting.
But at the same time, I get it.
Sure.
it's hard out there. We're craving happy endings, all right?
I
Like,
know. We want that Amblin Entertainment energy, please. Yeah, I
yeah.
get it.
So,
I
like,
get it.
but what I see for Anne at the end is someone who is just making it work. She's been handed some
Yeah.
shitty circumstances. She's made some mistakes, but she is making it work. And that's kind of how I see a lot of my stories in my life ending is like, yeah,
Yes.
I made a wrong turn here. I made a bad decision, but I am making it work. And there is
Yes.
power in just, kind of being like, "Mm, making it work." And so you know, and whether or not you like the way she's making it work, or you might be kind of cringing at how she's making it work at the end, or you could just laugh out loud at it. But she's making it work,
Yeah.
and also some of the people around her get happy endings, which was actually really satisfying for me to write. The people that she was kind of about the whole time, some of them get happy endings, and that was kind of rewarding for me. But, and that's something that I'm also working on in my next book is like I had a
Mm.
final with for my second book that I'm working on right now, I had a final image in mind and I was like, "Ooh, okay. How do I make this not super depressing but also make it like it's that same sort of image of like they're making it work. A lot of crap is happening, they're making
Yes.
it work, you know?" And it's
Yes.
like I don't wanna be too bootstrappy. I want to acknowledge how tough a lot of people have it and how there is just
Sure.
so much that so many more people have to overcome. But I also wanna honor those who are making it work.
Ugh, I love that. It's the reductio ad absurdum because cult behavior is absurd. You find yourself in a someone who has I'm someone who has well, I have not been a like member living on a property, but I have
Mhm,
been experienced behavioral coercion that was pretty intense in my life. And cult affiliated, and you get to such extraordinary places where you're like, "Wow, like, how did I just, like, drop $900 in one night, and I have no memory, and I have done so many substances, and this person is still here laughing at me," like, all these nightmarish things, but then also kind of absurd, right?
mhm,
I think this is and, this is where I keep coming back to the humor, right? And you and I know this, and I'm sure many people listening in do as well. The power of humor in, like, neutralizing that absurdity, transferring that from, like it's like, "Ye oh my god, yes, that is, like, traumatic. That is an objectively shitty situation.
mhm,
Victimization happened," right? But the humor takes it from, you have to feel through that, you have to move
mhm,
through that, but the humor can allow you to arrive at the, like, "And that was kind of absurd."
yeah,
And like that, here's my stand-up set about it now, right? And so I think that the making it work aspect, this is why I evangelize about season 2 of Beef and how it ends, is because it's a great example of like what Megan Daum would call breaking in, the essayist Megan Daum would call breaking in a life as opposed to like breaking it apart or breaking through
mhm,
it. Your life isn't broken. Your life isn't over. You haven't failed, right? You've
mhm,
just broken it in like a shoe, like a leather shoe, right? It's
mhm,
more comfortable now because you're not in the state of panic and resistance.
mhm.
And your book absolutely illustrates that. We've
Yeah.
got another question from Elizabeth K. Cook.
Hi,
I'd love to
Elizabeth.
hear more of Sarah's thoughts about the SoCal locations in the novel and what some of the different places mean for Anne. Great question,
Ooh,
Elizabeth. Go ahead,
okay,
Sarah.
yeah. So, I am based in San Diego right now, but LA was my home for a bit.
Mm,
It will always have a piece of my heart and my blood pressure. Um, this is what I like to say. I grew up in Southern California seeing LA as, like, the paragon of culture. It's the end all be all. It's where I'm gonna live when I'm a sophisticated city girl. I grew up in Northern Orange County, which is kind of bordering adjacent to Riverside County, and I had a lot of family and activities and friends in the Inland Empire. And the desert out there, that's kinda where I have Anne growing up and feeling like a bumpkin.
yes.
A lot of people are surprised to learn that Southern California has all of these, locations that are not like the liberal bastions you see on TV. Like,
Mhm.
there's a whole Bible Belt in Southern California. And, like, there is a specific mega church that I drive past on the 10 freeway sometimes when I'm going out to the desert
Uh,
that kinda helped me form my idea of Lighted Path Assembly, her dad's church. And so, LA is, like, where she wants to be, where she wants to stay. But at the same time, there's so much in LA that is crumbling, that is wrong, that is,
yeah.
like all, image obsessed, and we all know the tropes about LA. But in the desert, it's also kind of like she, it's both a place of I need to get away from this barren place. I need to, leave behind the people that are here. Like she refers to where she grew up as sad beige Blanco Valley. Like there's no color, there's no life here. Like, everyone lives in these little tinder boxes.
Mhm.
Fires happen. Um, but then also it's a place where she has to confront a lot of her demons when she goes
Mm,
home, etc. So the quote unquote barren wasteland is kind of where she has to go to make the big life steps and choices. And the where she LA is the place where she wants to be. That's kind of fraught.
mm,
Actually, it ends up being somewhere where she kind of not ruins herself but makes the terrible choices. So it's just it reflects my own relationship with where I grew up. In North Orange County, I was always like, "Oh, those unsophisticated blah blahs," and then I only wanted to think of, LA was it, LA was it. But then,
right.
like I in my late 30s, I have, kind of had the opportunity to go back and examine where I came from and examine like the breadth of people there. And, it's not it's, you get older, there's less black and white thinking, but that's
Yes.
why the locations that I, have in my novel have played a role. And also I did want to show people through, through a book that yeah, there's lots of diversity, geographic and otherwise, in, modes of thought in Southern California. It is not a huge monolith because I remember, like, when I went to college in LA and I talked about some of my experiences growing up, like being in 4-H and having lots
Mm,
of familiarity with livestock auctions at the county fair and
yeah.
going to a mega church service or 5, like, people are like, "Are you from the Midwest or the South? Where are you from?" I'm like, "I'm from Orange County."
Right.
Like, "I'm
Yeah.
from an hour and a half south." Like, I am,
Yeah.
this isn't like something that's isolated to one particular corner of the country. Like lots of modes of thoughts. And like, that's the same thing when people go to the South or the Midwest and assume everybody's going to be backwards in MAGA. No, that is not.
Right.
There is such a diversity of thought in a lot of these
Yeah.
places, even if the dominant discourse is something else. And so that's kind of part of what I wanted to juxtapose against each other in my 2 settings of, like, both, the Inland Empire desert and LA. Specifically, I based the neighborhood in LA that Sagebrush is on the neighborhood around my liberal arts college, Occidental College.
Perfect.
Got
The
some
perfect
East
fit.
in there because people I went to college with. It's been so much fun, by the way, hearing, getting my college friends' response. Like, they'll read a book and be like, "Is this supposed to be?" And I'm like, "Mm." Yeah,
You'll never tell.
I'll never
Oh,
tell.
I love that. Um, well, Sarah, we're just about out of time, but I do wanna make sure you have a chance to tell us a little bit about, like, your debut experience. You were giving us a great background on you're putting your publicist brain to
Mhm.
work, making these awesome, like, improv-themed events in, like, improv theater. It's really, really cool. But if you could talk, because I know there are probably gonna be some folks listening, if not now, then eventually, who are like, "Hey, I've got this manuscript, or I'm sitting on a manuscript. I'm, ready to get that
Mhm.
representation, get it published, build a profile." You are a bona fide publicist right here, and debut author. You have a really, really great
Ah.
combination of skills going on right now. So could you maybe give a little bit of advice people who are wanting to get their debut off the ground, wanting to turn their manuscript into a book? What have you learned? What would you do differently next time? What worked well
Ooh.
this time? Yeah.
I think I would be less shy about talking about the fact that I'm writing a book to people in my life before. I kept it
Okay.
a
Yeah.
total secret until draft 3. I,
Mm.
because I was like, "Oh, no, so cringe, I'm writing a book. Oh, and it's gonna be bad, ugh," But then I
Mm.
actually let people in on this and connecting, letting people know that I was writing a book and not keeping it a secret allowed me to meet people who were doing the same thing and get advice and build community and find my
Yeah.
writers group and all these great things. So just
Mm.
talk about the fact that you're doing this, even if you're embarrassed at the state of the draft right now. As far as
Yes.
querying, be stubborn. Oh my god. Like, a friend of mine asked at one of my book events, which was just like, oh, this moment for me, where she asked on behalf of her 8-year-old daughter who was with her, "Hey, she wants to be an author when she grows up. What advice would you have for this 8-year-old?" And I said, okay, keep writing on the idea even if you think it's silly. Write every idea down if you think it's silly. And also be stubborn. Don't give up on ideas too fast. Keep
Yeah.
writing and revising them. The really fun stuff comes when you're redoing it. I tried to put it in words that
Mm.
an 8-year-old could.
Revision is so much. But yeah, but that's so good to hear that when you're 8 though. Like, oh, it's part of it.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
like, it's not gonna be perfect the first time. That's why
Right.
the fun stuff comes when you're redoing it. I'm like, "Ooh, I should write that down." But,
Yes.
and then when it comes to querying, be stubborn. I got 1 yes, and it was on my 55th query. I didn't and
Wow.
my
Yeah.
agent, who I ended up signing with, he cracked up at my manuscript on a flight to Florida, and that's all I needed,
That's
you
awesome.
know?
Yeah.
Yeah, and he wasn't
Yeah,
someone I
you need one yes. Yeah.
you need 1 yes, and that's just please try and remember that. And then as far as, building the platform, finding your voice, etcetera. Just I did kind of think for a while, I was like, "Oh, I have to be posting a certain way. I have to
Mm.
be," I did take Lee Stein's Hype House class, I was in her inaugural class, which was super interesting. It was really, really that's how I met Liz and Mel and some of the folks on this chat.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I realized that, it's like I don't have to try and fit myself into like, square peg, square hole kind of way of being online. I can just, you
Sure.
know, a lot of it is, yeah, I can try and just be like, okay, yeah, this is what I do. Book talk, boy, I am not a good book talker in many ways. I don't write reviews. I don't do the aesthetics. Most of the time, I just do a lot of videos of me doing puns. And it's like, great. If you're into this, I also
Which
write.
is which I also but see, I love that though, because it's like, if you're into this, I also write a book and also come to my pun-themed event. Like, it,
Yeah,
like, works
yeah.
for you.
Like it all
Like
aligns. So it's just like,
yes.
it's not just me constantly being like, oh, I'm reviewing someone else's book. This is me talking about my book.
Right.
It's just like, it's just kind of like, and don't be afraid to look stupid. Like that's the other thing is, that's something that Lee told us a lot of. And that's also something that I love telling people. It's like, don't be
Yeah.
afraid to look silly. It is survivable. It is so survivable.
It is. It is. Yes, maybe that also doubles as the, like, advice to the millennial writers
Yeah.
wanting to explore this experience. You gotta get past the fear of the cringe, because what's more cringe is you portraying yourself as this kind of unself-aware, valiant
Mhm.
victim, and not actually, like, making the art you wanna make because 'cause you're terrified of how people are gonna react to
Yeah.
it.
And the thing is like that first draft that gets a lot of the crap out, and then you revise on that.
Yes.
And then, like again, I'm going through this with my second book actively right now. And one of the and I it is it and just like because I'm asking the questions in to my beta readers once this is officially sent out. I'm like,
Mm,
I'm asking questions that are going to elicit answers that make me cringe. I'm asking questions like,
yeah.
did you ever feel preached to at any point? Did any of the characters, did things this character say turn you off or challenge you? Like that, stuff like that. And so that is, yeah, I've learned to just run wholeheartedly into the arms of cringe and looking silly, and
Yes.
very freeing. Gotta say that.
It's so free. This is, I mean, among the many things, I actually really love aging, call me crazy, but one of the many things that I've really enjoyed is like, "Oh, wow, I really don't give a shit." So instead of being the, like, teenage girl who is like, "I hate makeup, and that makes me less of a girl, and I'm a failure, and I should do an eating disorder."
Yeah.
It's like these are, of course, hard things to go through, and a lot of things that,
Mhm.
like, when you're a kid,
Yeah.
you're trying to find yourself, your family, but, like, when you are an older person, when you are a middle-aged woman
Mhm.
swiftly sprinting towards middle age, you don't give a shit.
Yeah. I have fewer
I'm gonna post something. I have so like that part of the millennial feminism, I think actually is true. It's like, I'm just gonna post this picture of a roast chicken. I just don't care.
Yeah.
People they're upset about it. Or
Yeah.
like, yeah, come at me for my roast chicken picture.
And
I
also,
don't care.
like, yeah, I've reached the age and point in my life where people are telling me that I'm brave for posting pictures of myself in a swimsuit on vacation, and I'm like,
Oh my god. Yeah.
"Oh, I could never have the body confidence that you do." I'm like, "I'm just posting a picture of myself at the
It's
pool."
just a
Like,
pic. I'm just at the pool, and like, it's me and my partner. Like, you're fine.
Yeah.
You go be brave somewhere else. Yeah, no, I totally though, right? Because I think that's such a good way of framing it. You live long enough, or maybe even just
Mhm.
long enough, where you see some of this discourse stuff come full circle, and you're like, oh, like this is the time when I'm like supposed to be perfect, and now I'm brave. It's all
Mhm.
fake. All this shit was always fake, right?
Yeah.
And that when you don't know that, that's how the cult pitches you effectively. But when you do know that, that's when you write Be Well. Sarah Flocken, thank you for writing this book.
Thank
Thank you for
you.
talking to me about it.
Thank you
What a
very
treat.
much, Rob. Thank you so much for having me.
Of course, this was a delight. Everyone on the chat or watch this subsequently, please go ahead and get a copy of Be Well from bookshop.org, right?
Yeah.
Really anywhere you
Yeah.
could grab it. That's obviously not, Amazon, the politics of that. But
No.
just buy
You
Sarah's
keep just
book.
saying I'm a rock star, Melanie Jennings.
Melanie Jennings, yes. Well, thank you for those wonderful comments, you guys. Yeah, Melanie Jennings is right. Go ahead and follow Sarah on this platform. Follow her on other platforms wherever you want to find more great content about these themes. Thank you again, Sarah.
Thank you. Thank you so much,
Thanks, everybody. Thanks for
everybody.
tuning in. Bye.